All right, welcome to the Aim Sight Shooting Greats video series. And today we have the honor and privilege of hosting Mr. Allan Wills, who is pretty much the Canadian authority on everything archery. Like if you want to put Canada and archery in the same sentence, that's Al right there. He's been in the sport for, I believe, around 40 years. He has been
50,
everything
yeah.
from 50, wow.
50.
From the director of the Canadian Archery Association to coaching the Canadian Olympic team and many other roles that I'm probably either forgetting or don't know about. He's also a Navy veteran as well, so that's great to have such an icon in this sport to be on our show. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Thanks, Al. So we had a little bit of back and forth before starting this, and I know I just gave you a brief intro, but is there something you want to add for maybe those viewers who are not that familiar with you, or maybe they're from the United States and they don't know much about the Canadian archery? So like anything you want to add to that intro that I missed?
Archery runs in my blood. That's what I do. I really don't have a life that isn't archery. That my whole day revolves around archery. So I'm also an archery collector. Archeryguy.com is my website that I actually collect collections. I think I have so much stuff. I never tell anybody how many bows that I have because they might tell my wife. But it's just what I do, archery. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. You pretty much eat, sleep, live, and breathe it.
Yeah,
from the looks of it. But doing it for, like I said, 50 years. How did you get started?
Well, it's an interesting story, and it kind of comes back into your Army background. A friend of mine had broke his ankle, and he was needed a ride to archery, which was at Work Point Barracks, which used to be the PPCLI barracks here in Victoria. So I gave him a ride to this the Work Point Barracks gymnasium, and just thought I'd stick my head in and see what was going on. So that was 1970, just before Christmas. And I went home and I said to my wife-to-be, who was just my girlfriend at the time, I said, I think I'd like to take up archery. And shortly after that, in early 1971, we went to our first lessons again at Work Point Barracks, and have been at every tournament since. So.
Almost like love at first sight.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme amongst other folks we've interviewed on the show. But okay, obviously you've been a coach and you're a mentor for many years. And how do you feel like that is helping people either become better in the sport or just become better in life? I'm pretty sure you have some interesting stories how you helped turn somebody's life around or something.
Yeah, I think what I like to think of what I've done in all the years of all the people that I've known and interacted with is to give my love to the sport back to them, and to see people grow through the sport and make world teams, make Olympic teams, and do their thing, and not only that, just seeing somebody that is in success from somebody you just met that came from, I don't know, pick a province. Or Northwest Territories, and then you help them set up their association and make it better and get a coaching program going or a judging program, whatever it was. And it's really a rewarding thing there. And I think that's what I'm more into now than I am into my shooting and so on, is just helping grow the sport any way I can.
Yeah, I can relate because like I used to be an instructor in the military, and I really enjoyed watching my students graduate, and kind of brought a tear to my eyes.
Yeah.
Being able to take somebody from like 0 to 1, that's really something that I wish everybody actually should experience at least once. And any stories where like maybe help turn somebody's life around, like maybe like a difficult kid who was struggling and became successful because of your coaching?
Well, I guess the one we all know is Chris Perkins from your area there, from the Ottawa area, that he certainly wasn't a difficult kid, but you just saw him blossom from this kid that came out and just wanted to do nothing but shoot. And then next thing you know, I met up with him at a tournament in South America, and then one day I remember we're just heading off on a holiday, And I get a phone call just as the ferry's leaving Victoria, and it said that Chris had shot a world record. You know, you go, holy cow, you know.
I
And
took
then,
part in it. Yes.
yeah, and then we had a little bit to do with it, and just seeing people in the Olympic teams and things like that that move on to things that, you know, where you started a small program and got that person coaching. Joan McDonald, you know, from the Toronto area, you know, a veteran archer, started in the 60s, and just to help nudge her along into coaching. And then, you know, she took 4 of our Olympic teams overseas to Olympic Games and things, and she became such an integral part of our coaching program that I'm, you know, just happy to have known her and happy to have worked with her. It was great.
Yeah, no, that's really powerful, and I can only imagine what it feels like, you know, having to see your students on a you know podium at the Olympic Games.
It's one of those things, I guess, when somebody's having success, there's lots of people line up to say they had something to do with it, and you always say, "Gee, I wish I had a little bit more to do with it." But that's yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, when they asked him, "Are you like self-made?" He's like, "No, I'm not self-made. I had lots of help along the way," and he named all of the people that helped him. You know,
Yeah.
from Joe Waiter to all the other folks, and it's a team effort, I guess.
If you travel in the Northeast USA, the Daryl Pace was the best archer that ever walked the face of the earth, and he was from Pennsylvania, and literally everybody there had a hand in Daryl's coming up. You just ask them, they'll tell you.
Cool. Okay. So next question, I guess it's a double-sided question. What's the biggest win in life and biggest life setback so far that you've experienced?
Well, I think in what I see in Archery Canada, I really feel good about when we lost funding back in 1997, and we were just at the precipice of going to being on a kitchen table again and not having an office and not having anything to do. And then we managed through just some of the savings that we had in the bank. We were able to hire an executive director part-time and work through things and then bring archery back off the kitchen table and get back into government funding to becoming we probably had a budget of over $1 million last year from nothing. And to see the association so well looked after by the staff that we've been able to hire. So up until then, it was always, if you needed a judging program, who's going to do it? You know, you had to find a volunteer to run the program. You wanted a coaching program, you needed to find a volunteer. And if you wanted a awards program, you found a volunteer to run it. And now we can more or less, the volunteers can say at a meeting, yes, this is the programs that we need, and turn it over to the staff. So we're supported by a wonderful staff. And I guess that takes us into probably the downside that, you know, our Olympic preparations and stuff, and the results weren't quite what we'd hoped for, but probably we have a pretty good idea it was about where they are. And so we're certainly not going to continue on as $1 million a year association, but we are still getting next gen funding from Archery Canada, or I'm sorry, Sport Canada. We're well respected in the sport world, own the podium, Canadian Olympic Committee, Sport Canada, all speak highly of us. So we're a known sport. So we went from this, like I always use the euphemism of a kitchen table, just a bunch of people trying to do everything themselves, into a well-recognized sport in Canada and around the world. So when Canada makes a statement at a meeting, whether it be World Archery or Canadian Olympic Committee, people listen, and I'm very, very proud of that. So
that sounds like a tremendous job, you know, going from nothing to a recognized world player. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Who was your biggest influence in life and why?
Who? Well, there was a group of people actually, but I think I credit a lot of where I am to Uncle Fred Usher, we called him, and everybody around here calls Uncle Fred. And he was the announcer at both the 76 and 84 Olympic Games. And he was just a true great organizer. And I was so honored 5 or 6 years ago to be inducted into the Victoria Sports Hall of Fame along, that Fred's already in, and to actually be someplace in his footsteps was such an honor to me that, and there were others. Don Lovo was another international judge and served as a vice president of World Archery for many years. And he's not with us anymore either, unfortunately. But, some of the things that you just pick up little things at a meeting. And I always joke about Don Lovo. There's an old saying that if two people always agree in a meeting, one of them isn't required. Well, Don and I were required at every meeting we went to because we often knocked heads, but we got an awful lot done. So it was, there's a lot of mentors out there. And
good. A lot of guests actually mentioned usually like their dad, who's the biggest influence.
Unfortunately, I lost my dad early, and because of joining the Navy, I moved away from home very young. And even though we were never far separated, but I think I got a lot of my work ethic from my dad. He was a farmer in southern Saskatchewan and bought into the hotel business, which, as anyone that's been in that business knows, it was a bar more than a hotel, and 12, 14-hour days every day. So I think the fact that I'm known to be early for every appointment that I ever make, it's a part of him. But unfortunately, archery became such a big part of my life in '71, and it was never had anything to do with him. So all my mentors tend to be archers from there on, from 1971. So
yeah, but I like what you mentioned about the work ethic, because this is so important in whatever you do, really. And actually reminds me of I heard it. I think it's a biblical parallel where they say, like, to really succeed in life, you have to, be one of those three things at one point in your life: a soldier, a farmer, and an athlete. Because then you combine all of the character traits of the warrior, and then the hardworking farmer, and also the the athlete, the competitor, and then that really makes you into a well-rounded, successful individual.
And I think that was in my military upbringing too, that there's more people there that just steered you along. And I'm sure you remember, as I do, being a young leading seaman and so on, when you thought you knew everything there was to know, and then you'd be in some situation where that old petty officer that you didn't think knew anything knew 10 times more than you did, and just kind of nudged you along on how to do it. And even that, when you were really, really young, and you didn't think it was important to do certain things on a duty watch or a midnight watch or something like that, and found out awful quick that you got to do your thing, or somebody else stands out in the cold besides you. So it was a good life.
I'm glad. And I guess you've experienced all three aspects, as well as a competitor, an athlete, and then your family business, and also doing the naval service. So
I think that's what happened somewhere along the line, as I learned politics, by the ability to run meetings, speak in public, and things like that the military, it just becomes part of what you do. And you start realizing that there's another world out there, and how you portray yourself to that civilian world is important. And where you thought it was cool to be the swashbuckling military guy, and then to find out that really what the public wants is to know that there's somebody there that has a level head and can speak well for themselves. So I think that's guided me a long way there too.
This is great, and thank you again for your service. I want to switch gears a little bit, and I'll talk more about the tactical quote unquote part, where I really wanted to have the audience benefit from the wealth of your knowledge, and just maybe learn some of the things that can help them in becoming a better shooter, a better hunter, a better archer, or like some of our listeners, they're all of those things at once.
Yes.
So the first question is, if someone's an aspiring shooter or archer, has some experience but doesn't know where to start to get serious, to get to the next level, what steps would you recommend they take? Well,
the old joke, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. And I think that if there's anything I see that's underscored is just plain time in the trenches. Practice, practice, practice. You know, there's no arrows in the bank, call it whatever you like. There's no substitute for that absolute learning your form by making your form. And nowadays there's so much information out there. You don't need to do like I did and collect some 400 archery books. You can go online and find everything that's in my library. So when you're not shooting, you're consuming the sport, you know, and listening to people. And I think you have to go into every session when you talk to somebody, talk to another coach or another athlete with I'm going to get something out of this. If you go to a shooting clinic thinking you know more than the people there, you won't get anything out of it because you're not listening. So if you go to every clinic thinking he's going to teach me something, even though I shoot better than him, or even though I know people that shoot better than him, or even though I don't like the equipment he shoots, or I don't like the style of archery he shoots, if you listen, you'll learn. And I think that's so important, that to not rush your way through it. You know, you've got to take your licks, and you've got to, you know, have all the respect in the world when you pass people on the way up, because you hope they'll have respect for you when they're passing you on your way down. So I think that's
okay. Yeah, no, that's great advice. You know, becoming really serious about your intent and devoting the time and having the discipline to manage the time to actually put in the hours that are required to get to that mastery level. That's important. And I like how you said, essentially like getting help from other people, like listening to what others have to say, either a coach, a mentor, or a peer, and picking up little nuggets along the way.
and you can have you can hire the best coach in the world, but if you're not practicing and not listening, but you know, so coaches can help you save a few lessons in life, but most of all you have to learn them yourself, and you've got to be listening to learn them. I think that's so important.
It's no substitute for doing the work, I guess. Yeah,
no, absolutely not.
That is awesome.
I think it was Gary Player said something like, somebody said how lucky shot, and he said, I find the more I practice, the luckier I get.
That's a nice one.
Yeah.
Another question a lot of people had is like, how do you increase confidence? And that could be like in general, just becoming more confident, or like the confidence going into maybe a match where there's a lot of competitors that, you know, are serious. And so like on the macro level and the micro level, if you will.
Yeah. For me, it comes down to, like shooting, it's one shot. So it's one arrow. So if you have every bit of respect for that arrow that you're about to shoot, every one that you've already shot is gone, and the other ones are in your quiver. So you have every respect for that. And while you're at full draw, and that isn't going to be the absolute 100% perfect shot, you say to yourself, I shoot this arrow, I might lose the tournament because he beat me by 1 last time, and this might be the 1 point I need. So you reshoot the arrow or reanalyze the arrow and shoot it perfectly. And that's what you have to do. But if you throw shots away, the mind inside you is a lazy person. Inside everybody is a lazy person. If you let that person get out, they will let you shoot shots that aren't perfect, and then your archery career is doomed.
That's very interesting. Inside everyone is a lazy person. Yeah, that's right. I heard another like metaphor of, you know, the two wolves, the fear wolf and the courage wolf, and which one wins is the one you feed the most, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
Okay, you know, that's good. So in order to increase confidence, I guess you need to really not feed the lazy person.
And confidence is in that, even if you didn't win that tournament, if you shot the best you could, and you can get in your car to drive away and say, damn it, I shot really well today. Yeah. Never mind the result. I'm happy with what I did today. And, you know, there might have been a circumstance, but, you know, don't blame your equipment. Don't blame what happened. Just concentrate on how many good shots you had that day and how everything fit in. And eventually you'll be confident because you know you can go to an event and shoot well. You know, it's in you. But
Yeah, that is good. And I hear a little bit on the positive self-talk and positive reinforcement where like you actually pat yourself on the back and say, yeah, you've done good today.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, oftentimes we are our own toughest critic, and that kind of chips away at your confidence when you constantly, I could have missed it.
Well,
So
and that's it. You're always your own worst critic, and you're the only one that's inside your head as you're moving away from an event. So you're the one that has to own up to what you did. And, if you won the tournament because the other guy broke his bow and you didn't shoot all that well, and you walk away patting yourself on the back, you haven't done yourself any good at all.
Gotcha. Okay. Kind of tying into the confidence thing. Another question a lot of people have is around motivation, and we earlier touched on the need to put in the hours, to put in the work, to be disciplined. So that requires motivation as well, not just discipline. So how do you increase your motivation?
I think that motivation has to come from what you want out of the sport. So if you want to be, a top tournament archer, then your motivation has to be shooting well at that next big event, so you can, all your practice events that you go up to then the scores, you can more or less interpolate what it is towards the, take Vegas, the biggest archery tournament in the world every February-ish part of the year. So you can shoot indoor scores all through the year and see those scores and know how they might work at a tournament like that. And obviously you don't want to win it, but you can go there and do better than you've done before. And you can know that by seeing how your scores work. So if you learn how to periodize yourself into the proper planning to move your good events closer to where your motivation needs to be towards, then you've got it. That should take you there.
Yeah, thank you. Interesting. Again, tying to the first question, the need to be disciplined and manage your time properly. Like, what are some of your favorite tips or maybe routines that you follow to cultivate the discipline?
Well, I think it's to manage your time so that if you live the sport, then you can fit your life into your sport. So your family and everything else has to have its priorities. But if your priority is that game, then you have to find the time yourself. So you have to make time around, maybe taking your kids there, or there's something they want to do right next door, or if they're involved with you. But if you're serious about it, it can't be just you. It's got to be your whole family, your whole life. Everybody has to buy into the fact that that's what you want to do. So I think that's sort of what you were looking for.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, like you have to manage your life, especially if you're not a professional, competitor where this is your job. And yeah, you have to incorporate and make time for it. And
I think that's, and I think very early in my career, I realized that archery wasn't going to pay what I was, what I needed in a career. So while I shot every tournament I could and did as well as I could in everything there, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to quit my military career, put my family on food stamps, and go out and shoot bows and arrows. So, and it was a tough decision, but it's the reality. So, but instead of that, I made that a decision to go as far as I could. And then when I found working with the associations and teaching, coaching and things, I found I was a better mentor at teaching coaches to coach than I was in coaching athletes to shoot. So, and I think that's been what I'm most proud of. What I've been able to do is build coaching associations and judges and the Archery Association and working with World Archery and the committees and things like that. So I'm pretty good at that, at having a vision. So, so that's, you got to know what your goals are, and I don't have to teach you that, but your goals have to be attainable and achievable and all these things. So
smart, yeah.
Goal setting is goal setting, whether it's in the military or in sport.
Yeah, no, 100% right. Okay, so then that's how you become disciplined and on the micro level though, like before going into a match or a tournament, like are there any certain, tips or routines you follow to keep yourself organized, like, checklists to make sure you brought all the equipment you need, mental checklist that you go through the sequence of events, anything that keeps you organized in the field?
Well, it has to be what works for you. So I found athletes that say, well, I got the tournament, so tomorrow I'm going to have, this kind of breakfast, and I'm not going to drink coffee, and I'm going to do all this kind of thing. Well, that only works if you do that in your everyday life. So if you don't drink coffee at a tournament and drink coffee every other day, you're not going to perform well. Just a small example of things. So, but you have to be highly disciplined in everything you do, so that when you open your tackle box at a practice night, it has to be the same as opening your tackle box at a tournament. Everything has to be there. And if it's not there in practice, you make sure it's there in practice, so that when you're at a tournament, so if you're shooting in a social club night and you realize you don't have the Allan key you need, then you make sure that there's 20 of those Allan keys sitting someplace in your tackle box the next time. And so you make a note of that, and that everything is there. So you don't have in my mind anyway, you don't have a tournament tackle box and a practice tackle box. You've got a tackle box, and that's the one you take to tournaments. That's the one your bows are in. That's the bows you shoot, and that's everything has to be there. And certainly before you go to a big event, you have to have that checklist of stuff you need. And rain gear. How many times do you go to tournaments and somebody doesn't have a good set of rain gear? Spend the money, buy good rain gear, have good footwear. There's nothing worse than being the best shooter on the line, but you're freezing to death. It's all these things. So
okay,
be prepared. That's the whole mantra of any of this stuff, is that it was many years ago. It was an Army guy. We were in the field, and he said to me, "Any fool can be uncomfortable."
Yeah, it definitely rings true and brings some memories. Pack light, freeze at night is another.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah,
another favorite thing. But yeah, no, for sure. Like checklists, something that a lot of other people who intrigued are leveraging. Sometimes it's a mental checklist. Sometimes it's the actual paper one, or now people use apps on their phones. So, yeah, definitely. Okay.
Just hang on a sec. Yeah. Yeah, my grandson is they're just going out. Okay, there you go. I'm talking to a man here. So, okay, bye-bye.
Well, I guess
we're babysitting today. So
school time. Okay.
Yeah.
So focus on calmness. Obviously, my company has a couple of products that help with that. Shameless plug, but in general, like what role does it play? And are there any techniques that you used in the past, or teach to your students about having that on demand focus and calmness?
Again, it's nothing fits against practice. You can teach all these, but another metaphor, you can hand a child a diamond, and they know it's something shiny, but they don't have any idea what it is. So you have to live these things. And I think that you have to show your athletes and people that there's certain ways that they need to do things, and point them to what your experience is and how you relax and how else they might relax. So.
Okay, yeah. Like even, for example, in the modern military, they start to bring in certain techniques, like, for example, they call it combat breathing or box breathing or whatnot, where a certain pattern of, oxygenating your body will actually make you a little bit more relaxed, and get if you're in a high stress situation, it'll actually alleviate some of that stress. So there's like techniques like that. You ever had to use anything similar?
Well, I think I tend to find out everything. So if we're going to talk about breathing, then I try to immerse myself in what a whole bunch of people have written and find something that works for me. And I found that again, you go to a certain seminar and somebody teaches you a relaxation technique that doesn't work for you at all, but you have to pick something up from that. And I think that the one thing that worked for you the most in relaxation was a little thing that I learned at one of them. And we're at one of these seminars teaching relaxation, and I would do these relaxation techniques. I'd fall asleep, and then pretty soon you would hear the guy bringing everybody back out of the relaxation, and I'd wake up and I'd realize, well, I've lost the whole, I haven't got anything out of this because I was sleeping. So I went to the guy and I said, you know, this is what happens. I've done this a million times and I fall asleep. And he advised, he says, you relax in a chair and hold a Coke can in your hand, or a Coke can or a spoon or something like that. And when you fall asleep, your hand will relax and you'll drop that can, and that will bring you out of the sleep state. And I've used that for 25 years since I learned that. And I since have read that Salvador Dali, that's how he kept his inspirations going, would be he would hold something in his hand when he'd relax for a few minutes, and so that he wouldn't sleep and still keep the juices flowing. So little tips like that, you know, that, but as far as, you know, any great key to anything, I don't, like I say, I find I like to research any one thing, whether it's breathing or relaxation, and then find something works for me.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good advice. Just try different things and see what works, for sure. Okay. Any favorite practice drills that you like to do, like you know, when you're on the line, or just before the tournament, or before the shoot, something? Any rituals or anything like that?
Yeah. The important arrow thing I talked about before. This is the most important arrow that you've got to shoot right now, right here. What are you going to do with it? You know, and that's I find that helps me get the concentration back, because I find as I get older and into the shooting more, is that it's hard to keep your concentration on what you're doing. And so that you'll, in archery, when you come up to full draws, you're doing your aim cycle, then something says, did I do my income tax today? Or did I remember to fill up with gas, or all those things? And that shouldn't be in your head when you're shooting. So you have to be able to practice getting that out. And so that's why I like to say, this is an important arrow. We're shooting this by thinking about this arrow, nothing else.
Yeah.
And often means having to shoot it 4 times, because you've got to take it down and say, no, that isn't what you were going to do with this one. And you might not even get to shoot it. You know, that's
yeah, so that's actually brings up a good point. I was going to ask about it later, but I'll ask now, because self-talk is something that a lot of you know, people utilize in the military, in training and competition. So is that like one of your mantras that you repeat, that this is the one arrow? And
yeah, I think all the top archers and shooters I know talk to themselves and they say, this is what I need to do. This is, or simple self-talk, like, this is just another arrow on the practice range. This is just, I've shot this arrow 10,000 times before, and it's no different. I'm still here. It's the same bow, it's the same arrow, it's the same everything. So I'm just going to go through this, but you got to keep that. It is an important arrow thing. And like this, I say, that lazy person inside you is looking for you to say, oh, I'll just shoot this one, you know.
yeah, no, this is great. Obviously, we all talk to ourselves, and again, I've heard some people actually deliberately come up with, like, you know, sometimes it's a funny or a silly kind of like mantra or a slogan, kind of like, you know, looking good, got to be in Hollywood. This is one of the Navy SEAL books that I read. The guy actually used it to get through Hell Week. So I guess that's one way of doing it. What about?
I think the other thing is don't get too wrapped up in what any one person says. You know, like, again, buy all the books of Lanny Basham, for instance, the great shooting coach, and you hear lots of people and Lanny. Well, Lanny's got some good stuff, but you got to be able to cherry pick and take what works for you yourself, and don't be afraid to say, Lanny, that one chapter has nothing to do with my life, how I live my life, and I don't subscribe to that. The other stuff you've got's great, but be very careful of hitching your horse to one one rider. It's an important thing to diversify yourself.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's great advice to pull from different sources and kind of put together a mosaic of what works for you. And people do it in business, people do it in other areas of life, for sure. So on the same kind of note of self-talk, the other thing I wanted to ask you is visualization. Like, for instance, like I started competing in triathlons 3 years ago, and what I do is I visualize like certain steps, especially like transition from the swim to the bike. Like, what are the steps I'm going to take to make sure I don't forget to do up my chin strap on the helmet and get disqualified. So, when I was shooting rifle competitions, obviously, we'll play that mental movie in my head of how I'm gonna, work that target from that particular distance and the body position I'm going to take. Do you have anything like go-to techniques with visualization that help you or your students?
I think it's learning to visualize, and in that sort of that relaxation visualization training is where you learn you come from outer space down to the one little flower in the field and talk about those things. And it's the same thing in your shooting is to visualize that perfect shot all the time, and that arrow going to the center. And I have in my mind, it was 50 odd years ago, but I can still see the first arrow I shot in the middle, and I can remember that. And so that's kind of what you have to do, So.
What about things like visualizing yourself getting that medal on the podium? Like, ever tried anything like that? Because some people find it effective to kind of motivate them to.
Again, it depends on the person. For me, that doesn't work personally, but I know that, I've talked to athletes that does work. And I worked with athletes where all they can think of is that this is the arrow that wins me the world championships or the Olympic gold medal. And so they visualize that, or they visualize the medal, or they visualize the walk up the podium. All those things might work for you, but you have to find your own way. There's no visualization, relaxation, motivation. All those are so individual that you have to work with the coach and get that what works for you. Mm-hmm. Nobody has written that down for you yourself, right. Your own formula. We're all too distinct for that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know before we started recording, you mentioned that 95% of success, in your opinion, is mental preparation and mindset. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of expand on that I haven't touched on?
Well, I think you can go to any archery club and walk down the line, and you'll see people with really nice form, and you say, man, and yet they're not shooting the scores. And yet, the world championships just ended yesterday in Yankton. So, I was there, but I wasn't able to be there for the finals. And I watched all the people shooting and the quirks, that there's things you say, I'd never teach that. And yet here he is shooting for a gold medal at the world championships. So it obviously worked. So I think that part of it is, don't get too caught up in what other people do and what perfect form is. Mm-hmm. Your own idiosyncrasies. And so that when you look at that, it more enforces the fact that the sport is mental. So he's, I guess a quick example is you'll see a lot of archers that come up to full draw and the arrow might tip off the string or off the rest, and they'll just reach their finger and put it back. Well, that's a no-no in teaching archery. You let the arrow down, start again, all that stuff. But the top professionals, if that happens, they just quickly put it back and finish the shot. So, well, you would, in a coaching session, say, no, don't do that. That's, you don't do that. Or you don't have your finger up in the air like this when you're shooting. Well, you watch the world champions, and some of them do all those things. And in archery, like shooting, is you don't punch. But yet, right now, there's a whole bunch of top professional archers are punching. And how long are they going to be able to keep doing that? Lord knows, but they seem to be, the one fella's won Vegas twice punching, which is the absolute. So again, the sport is at least 95% mental, in that if you've got the will to win and the absolute drive and focus of how to do that and what you're going to do, you can make all those idiosyncrasies that you shouldn't do work for you. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know it's kind of hard to put it into like an algorithm or a system or an SOP that probably a lot of people are looking for that like blueprint. Okay, if you do steps 1 to 7, then you get your mental.
You can have the best in archery. It's called, the Korean coach calls it the best system, and in Archery Canada it's the 10 steps, and everybody's got their own. And if you look at the absolute pictures of perfect form, yeah, that'll work, but there's a whole bunch of people out there making the others not work, and one of the people, Chris Perkins, most people say leans back too far. Yeah. Well, he makes it work, doesn't he?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not a golfer, but I heard that in the golf world, like Bubba Watson is that guy who's supposedly doing everything wrong, yet he plays very, very well. And he's just like a self-taught person that kind of just figured what works for him and makes it work at a very, very high level. Okay. Yeah, no, that's, what you mentioned about having the will to win and focus and determination. Yeah, it's like we used to say in the army, like aggression covers up a lot of mistakes. Like during an attack, I guess it's a similar concept where, yeah, if you can be superior to your competitors in your head, then you have a good chance of winning, even though you may have some mistakes along the way.
Well, if you can do it, you can do it.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that's really powerful. I like it. You mentioned about goal setting earlier, and SMART, acronym. That's, I'm sure everybody knows, but how do you set your goals and how do you track your progress with your results? Is there a system you use or anything like that?
No, again, you have to adapt, because the difference between being the best shooter in the Victoria Bowman Archery Club in Victoria is a whole lot different than the best archer at Las Vegas next year. So, first you have to know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So it's, I guess if I ever had the chance to work with a world-class archer, then you have to walk yourself back from the ultimate goal. And certainly if your ultimate goal is Paris 2028, that's too far in the future. You have to have some goals that lead you to that, because if you don't shoot a 700, you're not going to reach that goal. So all these, you have to be able to set up when that goal has to be achieved by, and so.
Okay. Thank you for that. And another question, we're kind of wrapping up here, but one of the final questions is obviously consistency. That's very big in any shooting sport. Like obviously, in shooting, your grouping size is determined by how consistent you are with everything. So what's your best advice for that consistency?
Don't shoot bad arrows, I guess. The mantra I've been saying over and over again is that consistency will only come by not letting the lazy person out. So,
thank you for that. I know you dropped a couple of quotes throughout the interview, but one of the last questions is, do you have a favorite quote that you want to bring up?
You put me on the spot. I've got lots of them. I'm a metaphorical person, but yet one doesn't really come to mind right now. That I'm just trying to. Yeah, I'm sorry. I do have them, but what is it? Piss poor performance prevents.
Proper planning prevents.
Yeah, you can do proper planning prevents piss poor performance, and some of those old ones. Yeah, I like all those kind of things, but yeah.
We use it in the military. I think one of our quartermasters had it written on his door. For sure. Okay, so let's leave the audience with like one key takeaway. I call it a silver bullet, in your case a golden arrow. Like if they will remember only one thing from the entire interview, what would it be?
Don't shoot bad arrows.
There you go. There you go. That's been a consistent theme. Again, consistency throughout the entire interview. So, thanks for that reminder. Don't shoot bad arrows. Don't shoot bad bullets. And you already mentioned you can find you at archeryguy.com.
Yep, that's my website. Yep.
Any other place where you can be found if the audience wants to follow you and learn more about what you do?
I'm on Facebook and all that stuff. I got Yeah, so I don't have, I've got all the other social media things, but I really only watch usually my email and my very little bit of Facebook. I don't spend a lot of time there.
All right, awesome. So, go check out archeryguy.com and also look up Al on Facebook if you want to give him a shout. And
Yeah.
yes, thanks for your time today, and good luck in your future projects.
Good. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Enjoyed it.
All right.